Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the World Explorer podcast. This is the podcast where every week we take a random prompt and we build an entire world around it. My name is Cassie, and as always, I'm joined with Isaac.
Hello there! So, today we are world building a sky beam! Or, some sort of signal of light into the sky. Because I was listening to a song recently about a fire that lights up and would guide as a beacon to guide someone home, and it made me think of it started making me think of a beacon or something that would guide people home. And then I had also recently played Tangled and watched the movie with Cassie, and so I started thinking of all the lanterns, and so now my mind has gone to, what if we had something similar to a bunch of lanterns floating into the sky as like a big light source, and that was meant to be a signal to guide someone home, kind of like with Rapunzel. And this was just a normal thing that this kingdom or this town or whatever did anytime somebody went out hunting or something. Now, why would they do this instead of them just, learning the path? Well, maybe it's because that there's a gigantic enchanted forest circling their home that is shifting and causing people to get lost in it constantly, and so the only way that they can find their way back is if somebody lights up the sky. And so hunting at night is the only time anyone hunts.
So it's a lighthouse, but for an enchanted forest.
Kind of, yeah.
Instead of an ocean. Okay, got it. So, the moment you said that, I wanted to use another Harry Potter quote, and I can't do that. So is the forest like a maze then, with dark creatures and stuff inside of it?
It's enchanted, so yes.
So is its goal to turn people around? And also, how thick's the canopy? Is there points in the forest where it's too dark to see a lantern and you have to climb trees and stuff to try to find your way?
Good question. Maybe. Because now I'm thinking about the canopy. I'm thinking, oh wait, if there's a canopy, they can't see the lights all that well.
Forests tend to have that.
But the idea is that the forest is supposed to be turning you around and getting you lost. But then if you try and climb a tree and you see it, but then you get down to go after the light, you can't see the light anymore and you get turned around and lost again.
Yeah, so this has to be a specialized forest where it's either really weird trees where it's... I'm trying to think of a forest which will let you, a thin forest, but at the same time then how do they do the maze aspect? Because you need a thick, dense forest to be maze-like and to shift, but if you have a dense forest, then you can't see a beacon of light to guide you back. Unless this is a magic light in the sense that you can see it through the trees somehow.
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like that would make it hard to look at, though. Maybe it just, instead of it being a lighthouse, it is something more like floating lanterns, where they just go so high that it's above the trees and the canopy is not that thick, so you can see it from a really far distance.
What do you mean by high? It doesn't really matter how high you go. There's angles that get cut off by trees, more so than height.
Well, yeah, there's certain angles it get cut off from trees, but once you go high enough, you basically, I don't know how to describe it, you work around the angle in a way,
but for example, at that point the heights, I guess they'll lead you in the right direction, but I don't think it can help you pinpoint exactly where you need to go.
No, but once you get close enough,
you just get turned around again unless you got a direct.
Well, the idea is that this would be coming from maybe the center of the kingdom, which is surrounded by the forest, but it is not within the actual woods. And so, so long as it's able to get you close enough to the source to where, you reach the edge of the forest, you're fine. So
All right. So is it a trail of lanterns, like that they're still attached to the ground?
yeah, probably so that you're not wasting them, and so they're not being blown around a whole bunch, and so people lose their direction. Because then it's like, oh look, there's some lanterns over there, but there's also some over there. Which way do we go? So yeah, they probably be tethered
Yeah,
to the
exactly.
ground. In which case, you can't just have normal lanterns. You're gonna need some big lanterns. They're gonna be more like hot air balloons that are lit up because the rope is gonna weigh them down. So they're gonna be pretty big.
Yeah, and then you'd also need like a person on there to almost to man it that could keep the fuel up and keep them floating at all times.
Yeah, so they would probably be manned hot air balloons.
Yeah, and then there can be really bright colors, so they also still work in the day.
Yeah, that could work too. Like, because if they're brightly colored, they don't need to be lit up.
Well, I mean, they'll need to be lit up at night.
Yeah,
just
at night
not
they would
during
be.
the day.
Yeah, that works.
So why are they going into the forest?
One reason is to hunt and get food, and another reason is because it's an enchanted forest and it has enchanted magical properties and enchanted magical items. And what are these magical items? Let's say the fangs and teeth of a magical, let's say a star wolf. I imagine it's like formed from stardust, and they fall from the sky, from fallen stars, and they form and they roam the woods. And their teeth are valuable because they have magical properties that can, I don't know, what kind of magical properties would a star wolf have?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just intrigued by the idea of a forest that's themed around the night sky. So, like, going in it, the canopy might be so thick that it's like this eternal darkness with the stars, but then there's little patches where you can still see daylight and still find your way back. And that's one of the reasons why it shifts, is because, like, the night sky turns around, so does the forest, so it's constantly shifting, which means that if you can chart the forest like you can chart the stars, then you could actually get an accurate map to go in and out of the forest and not even really need the hot air balloons as much.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe. What if this world's stars shifted a whole bunch? Like, you couldn't have a star map, and this could be part of like why stars are falling from the sky. Maybe stars in this world, they form extremely quickly and then they fall from the sky, and so there's no like set constellations.
And stars are connected to the trees of the world.
Uh,
So as the stars shift around or fall and stuff, the trees interact with it as well.
at least these trees, because again, enchanted forest.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how it would work with the rest of the world, but at least with this portion of the
Yeah,
world, stars are attracted to the trees.
And then that could be an interesting dynamic in the sense that possibly the trees are almost asleep at the day and the forest is completely closed off. So it only opens up at night when the stars are active. Is the only time that the trees move around enough where you can actually go through it. And then you have time limits for people entering in that they have to be back by day. Or else they get, like, trapped in the forest.
I like that.
And possibly even crushed by trees, which a little traumatic, but...
Well, how do the star wolves survive? Or is that a good name for them? Star wolves? Stardust.
It's better than
wolf?
what we could
It's better than what?
Probably better than what we could come up with. It's better than what we could probably come up with, even with time.
Cosmo wolves. Nebula wolves.
I'm gonna stick
Night
with
wolf.
Star Wolves. That's done.
Who's done Night Wolf?
and I
I'm
think
sure it's been done before, but who's done Night Wolf?
I mean, I could Google it if you want, but I'm sure it's been done multiple times.
I'm sure, and I'm willing to bet Star Wolf has also been done.
No, you're probably right, because everything's been done. He's messaging me.
Okay, so I looked up Night Wolf.
Okay.
It is Night Wolf on IMDb. Has a 2 out of 5 star rating. it looks like some sort of movie. It's a movie for something. I don't know what it's about.
Oh, I actually know what Star Wolf is. It's part of the Fox games. Do you remember?
Oh,
Have you
there's
ever
Star
played the
Fox.
like Nintendo's Star Fox? Yeah, but there's a Star Wolf that's part of that.
I know that there was a character named Wolf. Is he called Star Wolf? Oh, okay. I looked it up. He is. Huh.
No, so the Star Fox's team, there's also a Star Wolf team.
Oh. Okay. I don't know
Yeah.
enough about Star Fox.
We have one game that I played as a kid with my dad. It was one of the few games my dad liked that he'd play with his kids.
Huh. Yeah.
Yep.
Names are difficult.
I don't think it matters. I'm gonna keep calling them Star Wolves because that's out of the options you've given, that's my favorite.
Okay. So Star Wolf.
So I think they probably they're awake at night and they go to sleep in the day, and they probably have homes and they know how to navigate the forest and like find their homes easily. So they just know to be in their homes before day comes.
Yeah, I think that's
It's an instinct.
I think
thing.
that's a good way of going about it. Another method is maybe rather than being crushed, or maybe there is like a chance of being crushed if you're there in the day, but maybe they're just the trees are just so tightly packed together that you can't navigate them and you can't get around them. But the wolves are maybe like they're thin and flexible enough that they can sort of weave between the trees and crawl into little crevices.
Yeah, another option though could be that it has like maybe an enchanted sleep effect for people who are stuck in the day. So the trees fall asleep, and when they do that, they put almost everything else in the forest to sleep, except possibly things like star wolves and other creatures that live there all the time. In which case, if you're stuck there and you fall asleep, chances of you getting eaten by something is extremely high.
I like that idea too. And another thing is, again, going back to the tree crushing thing, maybe the star wolves, because they are made of stardust, can turn into dust. And they turn into sort of like a smoke
Ooh.
form almost. And they can sort of like float around, fly around between the trees.
But maybe they can only do that in the day. So that's another reason why you have to hunt them at night, because the only time when you can really kill a solid one of these guys is also at night. So there's just all the reasons that you have to be in the forest at night and you want to be out by day.
Yeah.
Which also means these people are like trapped in this town, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, unless they want to go through the forest at night.
Yeah, but even then, like, I don't know how big the forest is, but it makes sense if it was bigger than a one-day journey.
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty massive forest, but the thing is, that makes trade really difficult if you want to trade outside of the kingdom.
I'm just yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, is there any trade, or are they completely reliant on like their own farming and their own hunting and their own resources? Which means this might not be as either this is a lot bigger of a kingdom than we first thought, or it's actually a lot smaller.
I think this would be a fairly large kingdom, so that they actually have a way to get resources and stuff. And I think there might be some level of trading. It's just that it would be in very, very small amounts and likely with very valuable items, because you can't get a cart through the forest. And the forest is extremely dangerous to travel through. So it'd be like probably a small group of merchants with some big bags on their backs hiking through the forest at night to reach the kingdom, and then they trade what little extremely high valued items they have in exchange for some other high valued items, such as star wolf fangs. Maybe they're called star teeth. No, that's stupid. That sounds stupid now that I'm saying it out loud. I don't know, night fangs. Night fang. I kind of like night fang.
I don't know, I just thought of like maybe a bad pun based off of like meteorite and teeth and combining those, but Night Fang's fine.
Yeah, I think that night fang would work. So yeah, that could be how trading works. What sorts of things would be valuable outside of the enchanted forest? I don't know. Maybe certain jewelry and gems. Maybe they would have some type of a wine I don't know.
I mean, what do they actually have inside the kingdom that they have access to?
We
Like
should
things they have
establish
to have.
that.
They have to have a yeah. They have to have an established food source because otherwise they're doomed. They have to have a way to make clothing, whether that be farming or animals. So that would be something they'd have. They'd have to have some type of resource to make tools out of. Unless that resource is actually like the wolf fangs, in which case that could explain why they're out hunting a lot. But then I'd also think that would kill the population of those wolves too fast to keep up with a giant city, so that wouldn't.
Well, they're falling from the sky. I don't think they're reproducing. That's the thing. They're not reproducing by like mating. They're just falling from the sky. And
Okay.
so there would be no reason not to kill one.
That's true. Yeah, but I don't know how often they're falling to supply an entire city with that amount of resources.
I don't think that they would be falling that often.
Yeah, and then you still also have to allow the forest to be being able to wander around it without being attacked by 80 of them.
Yeah. I mean, maybe like they'd fall once per night or something like that. And so you could have more than one wolf, but you'd have to. But that's assuming you didn't kill the previous night's wolf. And so you might, maybe they actually form packs. And so if you don't find the wolf the first night that it falls, it will go and find other wolves and they will form packs and they will grow stronger the longer you leave them alone.
And do they become like a threat to the city itself? Would they attack the city?
I don't know. I mean, if we're basing it off of real wolves, wolves tend to avoid humans, but these are magical stardust wolves.
These are stars. Like, these wolves come from stars, so they're not normal.
No, these are not normal.
They're not our wolves.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, maybe. Why would they attack the city? Would they attack it for food? Do they need to eat?
Yeah, that's a question. I don't know why they would. Maybe they don't like the cities there. Like, they want the entire forest. Maybe the city, in order to be formed, has to cut back on the magical forest.
Oh, maybe they're opposed to darkness, or they want darkness. And the city is too well lit.
Yeah, there's no trees there. They're plopped down in the middle of their forest. Like, there's lots of reasons why a magical being would not be happy with a town like this. So this has become less of traveling into the forest to kill these wolves. Traveling in the forest in general is less about like hunting or getting supplies or something. They have that in the city. It's more of a protection thing, which means you probably have an elite team of trackers who their sole purpose in life is to kill the star wolves before the star wolves kills the city.
So if the star wolves are opposed to light, then would one of their weaknesses be something like a torch? Or do they just not like it? Are they weak to light, or do they just not like it? I think they just don't like it, and so if you maybe wield a torch, they will attack the torch and try and extinguish it, but I don't know if it would really hurt them. Because again, they come from stars, which are... they are emitting light. I don't think the wolves themselves are emitting light. Maybe they have like little specks of light on them, but they're more of a bluish color.
Oh, so they get to level up by the sun still. Like, they get to turn into stardust the moment it's day. And they can dance around more. So it's not so much that they're opposed to light as much as they're opposed to these presents. And maybe they are deeply connected to the trees. Well, obviously they're connected to the trees. That's what attracts them to the area. So the trees is what's summoning the stars. So as the city expands and they're cutting back the forest, they're cutting back like these things that they're attracted to, and maybe it's even their sources of power and ability to live comes from these trees. So I don't know, if someone started cutting down my source of power, I'd not be happy.
Well, I think the forest is just growing itself back so incredibly fast, because again, it has the power to grow back so fast that it's crushing everyone within it. So
So was the city able to form itself then?
I'd say that there were probably I would say that there were probably some people who managed to travel through the forest, and I think that that the forest was never cut back. It was always in this ring sort of shape. It always had this center in it. maybe there's some sort of magical item that was in the middle of the forest that pushed back the magic of the trees, and that's what's keeping it at bay. What kind of magic item would do that? I don't know. We could say we could go with cliche like big magic rock.
We always do big magical rocks, though.
Like what would keep the forest at bay? Oh, enchanted gardening tools. Yes. Behold the holy hedge clippers.
Actually, wait, what if this is a purpose for the starfangs, actually? Being able to collect them, since they're so deeply connected to the forest, what if the only way to really chop down the trees is to use these fangs? But it costs, like, for every tree you chop down with one of these fangs, it costs the fang to do it.
I mean, you need a lot of fangs at that point, because you're talking about enough trees to surround a kingdom. And this isn't a small kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was at one point. It grew. Giant kingdoms just don't magically happen. They start small and then they become that. So this started as a little outcropping of probably a group of people who had been collecting these things for ages, well aware of what they did, decided to take a chance. They dived into the forest, probably to escape something from the other side. I don't think it really matters what. They dive in the center, they start their small little community and their little clearing, and then they slowly grow the clearing as they're hunting these wolves to do more. And now they're at this big city point, but the problem is they've hunted so many of the wolves that it's down to like 1 or 2 every so often. So they can't really grow anymore, but now there's an overpopulation issue, so hunting wolves is even more important, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, but at that point, you've got to have the entire city chopping down trees all together, because, again, as it grows, the radius is expanding faster than people are able to cut down the trees.
I think that's the thing about like the fang, is that when you use the fang, the tree can't grow back. Nothing can grow in that area. It's like you're using a magic item associated with the forest to strip the magic from that portion of the forest.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, because, yeah, that definitely makes sense.
So it increases the value of the fang, and then as they're growing more, but the population of wolves is lessening, because they've so efficiently handled it, then they can't really grow anymore without these wolves. But if the forest is shrinking slightly, then maybe the wolves aren't summoned as much. And
well, then wouldn't one of the first things they try to do be chop down a road through the forest for trading?
That's a good point. Yeah, no, that's a bit. I don't have an answer for that one. That's a great point. Why? Yeah, you're right. Well, I wouldn't. That's something they would do.
So maybe the forest, every time you chop down a tree from the inside, it expands outward.
Oh, so the forest is just getting worse?
Yeah, it's getting worse on the outside, and it's slowly expanding. But on the inside, the clearing is growing.
So it's more like it's less. The magic is less being destroyed and more moving into the forest itself.
Yes, it's sort of more moving into the forest and then moving onto the other side of the forest and sprouting up trees elsewhere. And so if you had a town that was, say, 10 miles away from the forest, they don't need to worry about the forest. And then these people inside the forest decide to expand 10 miles. Suddenly your town is going to be overrun by trees that you can't get rid of.
And that could cause wars, which conflict is always the best thing for stories.
Yeah,
it doesn't really answer, though, the road problem. So does that mean that if they're trying to make the road, the issue is that every time they expand from their little inner circle, the magic reforms itself into the road, and therefore they can't keep doing that. So, because my thought process is the magic's from the center, and they're expanding from this middle point outward. But every time they go outward in their little circle, it pushes the magic back through. So if there's a road inside that center, the magic's gonna fill up that road before it gets to the outskirts to start filling that up.
I was thinking that more like let's assume you did manage to cut a road through the forest. At the end of that road, where the forest normally would have ended, it would have formed a bunch of trees there and expanded outward in like a big bulgy part of the forest. It's just sort of sticking out.
Yeah.
And it would so this way you can't cut a road through, because like you could cut a road through. It's just that you're gonna grow more forest in front of that road, and so it's pretty pointless.
I mean, in that case, a road could be a very useful weapon, honestly. So say you have that warring town. If you know exactly where that town is in distance to yours, you just start cutting a road to them. And as you're cutting that road, you're cutting a trail of dark trees that puts everyone to sleep in the day and summons evil demon wolves that will kill you straight through their town.
Okay, I don't think we actually established, like, are the trees like putting everyone to sleep, or are they crushing? Or are they doing both?
I don't know.
I feel like both is overkill.
Both feels a little overkill, but do we want other things like going on?
I feel like I want
other creatures.
I feel like I want
things?
other creatures. It's an enchanted forest. It should be super magical. It should have more than 2 magical properties.
In which case, then it should probably be the sleep thing instead of the crushing. Just because then you can have creatures who are still immune to it, who live in the forest, or even creatures who aren't, but they know how to hide themselves during the day.
Okay, so for some reason my mind went to moonlight butterfly.
Yeah?
Now what do
Are these light... Do we have... Is this a light producing thing? Is it like fireflies, but butterflies?
Yes, and it's blue. It's like a light blue.
And they flicker?
I wasn't thinking about it flickering. I was thinking like a steady light.
Huh.
And like the entire thing just sort of glows, and maybe it leaves like a little trail of what looks like pixie dust behind it. Except it's blue.
Yeah. I would, honestly, I want this forest when you walk in it. Yeah, it's always shifting and changing, but also it feels like you're walking in the night sky. Like, there's lots of little lights and a lot of... sparkles probably isn't the right word for it, but you get the idea.
Glistens?
That, and it's...
Glimmers?
Yeah. Shimmers?
Shimmers? Yeah, I think shimmer, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not shimmer. Yeah. I don't know. But I get the idea. I think sparkle might be the best word.
Possibly. So what about water? Is there water sources that the trees just move around, or do those also move?
I would say rain.
Yeah, well, I feel like if we have more normal creatures in this forest, they might need more than just rain. Unless we're saying these creatures don't need water, they're powered by the moonlight and stars.
Well, I would say something like the star wolves are definitely more powered by stars. Like, they're not... I wouldn't say like they have a normal biology. I mean, they turn into dust and then fly around like smoke. I don't think they need...
Yeah, no, I agree.
But the moonlit butterflies... I don't know.
Yes. I mean, butterflies can eat dew, so that's not a problem for butterflies. But I don't know if we have, like, any normal creatures like rabbits and foxes and deer and stuff in this forest or not, and in which case...
I think...
they would need water.
I think that some normal creatures would live in the forest that aren't magical, but I don't know how common they would be. I guess it'd be at least fairly common. It's just that they would all be nocturnal.
Yeah, but we also have to keep in mind there had to be some type of creatures for the first settlers to have hunted for food and supplies while they worked on farming and creating resources. So I feel like there has to be things like deer in this forest.
Yeah.
Sure, they're not hunting them anymore, but at some point there had to be in order for this town to even exist.
I mean, they might be still hunting them. I don't see why not.
True. I think, yeah. Forest's scary. Only go in if there's wolves. You don't want to get stuck there.
Yeah. Well,
Is the city itself then, out of curiosity, like just because of this, more of a nocturnal city?
I don't think so. I think would more just be an occupation where you end up staying up late. Anybody whose job it is to man the balloons, it just is not nocturnal. Anybody who goes hunting at night,
Yeah.
is nocturnal. But most people don't have a reason to stay up at night, and so they work during the day.
Okay. I think like maybe they have a lot more festivals that go later into the night. Like I could see almost a religion or belief system being formed around the night sky, considering that the night sky literally comes down to where they live.
And then it tries to kill them.
Yeah, well, but also the forest it sounds beautiful. Like sure there's these creatures that are there to kill you, but especially in this timeline, they're few and far between. And you actually have to you're hunting them more than they're hunting you at this point. So in the end, the forest is actually like a really pretty, peaceful place as long as you don't get lost and stuck at it during the day. Unless there's other scary things in it.
I feel like there should be more dangers than just the wolves. Well, there's already the massive danger of getting lost. Because again, the forest is slowly shifting and trying to confuse whoever's in it.
Yeah, because at the moment, sure, if you get stuck and it's day, you fall asleep. If you've already killed the wolf, you're fine. But I feel like there should be a consequence of getting stuck and falling asleep in the forest. Like a real danger. Something that comes out in the day.
Yeah, what if this forest had two different sides to it, essentially? Like, it had the nighttime side, but then also it had different types of creatures and different types of themes based around it that are more based around the sun.
So, like fires?
Yeah, probably more fires and fire creatures. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe like a magma golem sort of thing. I don't know.
It could even be like a bug or something, like something small that there's a lot of that comes out during the day. So that way, no matter where you are in the forest, you're not safe from this thing.
Fireflies.
Just actual fireflies.
Yes. Insects made of fire that will cling on
Well, you don't
to
want
you
to set
and
the forest on fire.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they avoid the trees. Maybe the trees are immune to them. It's enchanted.
Oh, true.
The forest could be fireproof.
Yeah. But you're not.
In which case, this would be an interesting material to build with if you had fireproof wood.
Oh, that's true. For like the actuals. And that could explain why these bugs never go to the city. Is because they have... That's when they mine the trees, that's what they use to build the walls and stuff. So obviously the fire... It might be almost like a repellent to them.
Well, what if they had two different ways of getting the wood? Like they had the wood method of chop it down with a tooth, and that gives you fireproof wood. But then if you use a normal axe, it loses its what you chop down loses its magical ability, and then the tree grows back in where it was. But the wood that you've now chopped down is not magical, and so it's not fireproof. And so people have a heat source.
Yeah. And also unlimited wood, which is just cool.
Yeah, they have unlimited wood. Like, there's a lot that you can do with that.
So they probably build like everything out of wood then, which would solve some... It's a city that's infrastructure is based off of wood because it's easy to replace. Because they're not gonna have the same access to minerals because they're so confined.
Yeah.
That other cities would have. So
That's...
stone castles and stuff don't make sense, but a wooden city makes perfect sense for them. And if they build their outer walls and just keep pushing it back out of the magical wood that they're gathering, then it could be maybe the fact that actually chopping it and stripping it and stuff releases more of that anti-bug stuff that the tree naturally has. So it's even more of a bug repellent than, say, just the normal tree. Because obviously these bugs live in and among the trees. So something has to be done to the wood, the fireproof wood, to prevent the bugs from just flying over the wall and burning their city to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, well, the question is, do the bugs want to burn the city to the ground like the wolves do? But do the bugs?
It's,
Do
well,
the
it's
bugs
more
care
like
as much?
mindless bugs. Well, these bugs, when you go in the forest, they hunt people. And now there's this big city full of people.
True, or do the bugs just care if you're in the forest?
Are they just like protectors of the forest and they can't leave the forest almost? Like, if they leave the forest, they lose their abilities and they become like normal bugs.
Maybe if they extinguish if they leave the forest.
So they have to be in the forest and it also be day.
Yeah, I think, what if the creatures that were sun-based and came out during the day could not leave the forest? Just all of them in general, but the ones that were centered around the night could. Why is that the case? I don't know.
Maybe because the nighttime's stronger. So the night association of the forest is just stronger, and therefore the creatures tied to it are stronger and therefore can leave easier. Meanwhile, the daytime's just always been weaker, and therefore the creatures are too.
Maybe we go to what we were talking about before, kind of like with the trees growing and crushing, and but instead of them crushing, they form a wall on the outer layer of trees along the forest. It just becomes thicker, and so the creatures can't leave. But the reason the bugs don't leave might just be, I don't know. There's no reason for the bugs not to leave.
But maybe it is that they're like tied to the trees in a more direct way, and that they. I'm trying to think like what the tree's relationship with the daytime is. So the night goes away. The trees start putting certain things to sleep. The wolves evaporate, and then the trees solidify along their edge, and kind of settle in, trapping things. And it's an enchanted forest. Why can't we just say that the bugs only gain firepower if they stay within the forest during the day, and if they leave the forest or it turns night, then it turns off?
Yeah, I'd say that works.
I don't think we need to explain. This forest is very magical. I don't think we need to explain these
Yeah,
things.
it's sort of it's somewhere between soft and hard magic system.
It's very much tied that certain things happen at night and certain things happen at the day. But what those things are, while they make sense to those two dynamics, there's still a lot of freedom in what can happen.
Yeah, it's like you don't necessarily know exactly why it happens, but you know that it happens. You know, like, it's predictable as to what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's just that you don't necessarily know why. And it is a situation of anything can happen, but if something happened once, it will happen again. There is consistency.
Yes. And it's still closely tied to, like, nighttime, daytime.
Yeah.
You know that the nighttime is going to be different from the day. Almost, it's like there's the same creatures, but they are different depending on what time it is.
Yeah. I'd say it's about the same level of hardness on the magic system scale as, say, the One Ring, where it's like, it gives power. You know that it can turn a hobbit invisible. You know that there's certain creatures and certain people that it will give more power to. And it lengthens your lifespan. You don't necessarily know why it does all this, other than it's magical.
Yeah, and we don't need to elaborate on it, because Magic Forest. It still sounds like a very cool. Like, it seems like such a pretty place to explore, but it's also so dangerous, which I think is the definition of a magic forest. That's always what I associate with it, is that it's this beautiful, enchanting place, but also it'll kill you.
Yes. Okay, so these bugs, I imagine the way that they would attack, because they're, like, made of fire, they would just, I imagine the swarm clinging onto your clothing and then just setting you on fire.
They cook their food and then eat it.
Yes, they will try and like cook your flesh and then eat you. But would they be able to actually kill someone or by this, or would they just severely burn them?
I mean, they're asleep, so it's not like you're fighting back. I mean, so it's pretty much you just gone.
Yeah, I mean, over time they would
It's
cook you enough to where there's nothing left.
they're also eating you.
Yeah.
Like it would be a very painful death if you weren't asleep for it.
Yeah.
So if anything, the forest is mercy killing you.
Yeah, I guess it
The
is.
trees are being nice. They're like, you're gonna die anyways, but at least you won't feel it.
Yeah. And like you said, otherwise it would be a very excruciating death.
I had a horrible death. I don't want to figure it but you're asleep through it, so it's fine. It's not dark and scary at all.
In fact, it's not dark at all. It's very well lit up.
Almost too lit up, one would say. We need to be less morbid.
Just look on the bright side of life.
Exactly. Yeah. See, it's not as bad as people think. It's fine.
And how does one chop down a tree with a tooth? I haven't figured that one out. It's very small. Trees are very large. Unless it's like you're getting a bunch of teeth and you're making a saw out of it.
No, because I like the idea of it's a tooth for a tree concept.
Okay, maybe you stick it on
in
like
which case,
a little... Yeah, you like strap it onto a stick or something as like a hilt, and you just slice it once across a tree trunk, and then it magically cuts all the way through and it falls.
That's what I'm thinking. It's a very magical. It's magic, so obviously it could chop through, and then that's that tree gone, and the magic being pushed back into the forest to spread on the other side, to freak out your neighbors 20 miles away.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to worry about them for the next probably couple decades before we reach that town. We're fine.
And they can move by that point too. You know, they can inch their way away from the forest.
They can, but that's like a whole thing, isn't it?
It depends. I find the idea of a war going on inside the forest also like an intriguing story idea. Of, you know, all of them want to be out by the daytime, but at the same time they're fighting, so you have the nighttime battles within this forest.
Yes.
That's constantly shifting and moving, and be hard to wage war.
You also have to keep in mind that the people who live within the forest have a distinct advantage of being able to better navigate it, because the forest acts as a defense. So if somebody tries to invade, they're going to get lost.
So, and that's still a good story. Even a fun story that I think I'd enjoy writing would be a story from someone in that outside town that's watching this forest come towards them, and it's nearly there now, and maybe it's even eaten a couple buildings already, and they've been tasked to enter the forest, and they have no clue really what happens except that whoever goes in tends not to come back out, to go find the source of the forest growth and stop it, and their journey somehow surviving their journey in, finding the town, trying to talk them out of it, and then that not going well, and then a war being raged, and this person's whole involvement in it.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting story. I think there's a lot of story potential for this one. You could even have multiple stories within one book. You could have the one where the person's journeying in to find out what's going on. You could have the one where some kids run into the forest and they get lost. You could have the story of a
wolf hunter with no more wolves.
Yeah, you could have a hunter. You could have one about the story of hunter needing to prove himself, where it's like there's some sort of rite of passage where you have to go and slay a star wolf. You can have a story about all the star wolves becoming too strong, and then where you can't find them, they're in hiding, and then they come out of hiding all at once, and they start charging towards the town and the kingdom, and they start wreaking havoc, and no one knows how to deal with them. It's like, because you've only got this small group of hunters that are able to deal with them, but now they're running rampant through the streets. Like, there's a lot of story potential.
And it's just a city sitting in the middle of another enchanted forest, but it feels very like a unique, its own little world. I like it.
Yeah, I definitely say this one's unique. I can't think of any story that's had an enchanted forest or isolated kingdom set up quite like this one.
It's also very aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, it's got a very certain, like, distinct aesthetic to it.
I mean, a wooden city. Like, think of, like, wooden castles and houses. That's just cool.
Wooden city with wooden castles.
Made of enchanted wood.
Yeah, made of enchanted wood, surrounded by an enchanted forest that's always shifting, with, like, the lights and the balloons and stuff coming up from the center of it. And it's all themed around night and day. And the stars constantly moving and changing and falling from the sky. Like, it's got quite the aesthetic.
It's pretty.
It looks really pretty, but it's also really deadly if you don't know how to navigate it. But it's also not so deadly that you have to be terrified and horrified of this world all the time. It's like just got the perfect amount of everything.
You know, it's like one of the few worlds we've created where, like, if I somehow got sucked into one of our worlds, this would be one I'd be okay with.
Yeah, like, I would not mind living in this world.
Yeah. There's some where I'm like, absolutely not. But this one, I could live in this one. I could survive this one.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know what life is like beyond the forest and what sort of things are outside of the kingdom. Probably a lot of other magic, because this place is pretty magical. I imagine there's other magical locations. Don't know what they're like.
Yeah.
But
and we don't have the time.
No, we don't have the time to world with that. But you see, with this one little starter area, there is a lot of potential for world building beyond this kingdom. You could really do a lot with this space concept.
Yeah, good job, us.
Pat yourself on the back, and then say goodbye to the peoples because we're out of time.